12.5, the cycles of matter. Let's take a look at the water cycle here. So we'll start with water in a body of water like the ocean. This can also happen in rivers and lakes and streams, okay? But what we're seeing is that water evaporates from these surfaces. This water condenses in clouds and becomes precipitation, either rain, maybe snow, depending on where it is and what the temperature is. Snow becomes glaciers, which melt into streams that becomes rivers and lakes. Rain also falls, and it becomes groundwater, so standing water, which can run off into our bodies of water. Okay, so runoff is another thing that was kind of missed here. We know that water can seep below the ground and become groundwater as well. So there is a storage of water below ground. However, the water cycle really involves the strong majority of what happens at the surface and in our atmosphere for groundwater runoff and those bodies of water. Water evaporates constantly from bodies of water like lakes, streams, and oceans. Don't forget that plants also give off water. This is through the process of transpiration. Animals can also give off water, which is crazy to think about, but through sweat. The water cycle maintains fresh water that is required for all life on Earth. The carbon and oxygen cycle, sometimes referred to as just the carbon cycle, sometimes referred to as the carbon dioxide cycle, includes a few different things. I know this picture isn't great, but it's a nice way of representing things. So, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere can only be removed through photosynthesis. So notice that photosynthesis is the only thing removing. Oh my. Okay. However, lots of things contribute to carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, like combustion or industrial processes. Combustion could also be forest fires, but a lot of it is us burning fossil fuels, either in industry or in our cars. The other thing is photosynthesis, of course, makes glucose. Glucose is used for cellular respiration. Cellular respiration produces CO2. Now, plants are not the only thing that undergo cellular respiration. We know that animals eat plants. Animals also undergo cellular respiration to produce energy for themselves. But they also die. Their death and decomposition over time would make more fossil fuels. So things dying today in millions and billions of years will become fossil fuels as well. So death and decomposition, like the dinosaurs, produced our fossil fuels. But death and decomposition can also produce different gases that include carbon. So they are important to note. The nitrogen cycle. Carbon dioxide, this is not the nitrogens. This was the carbon cycle. We are going to look at the nitrogen cycle though. So noting again, CO2 is only removed by photosynthesis. CO2 can be produced by cellular respiration, combustion, so of fossil fuels, industrial processes, forest fires, and by the decomposition of plant and animal materials. Last one here is the nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen cycle includes a little bit more and isn't maybe as intuitive as the water cycle and the carbon cycle. So, there is nitrogen in the atmosphere. However, the nitrogen that we as humans or animals need, as well as plants need, we can't absorb it from nitrogen as nitrogen gas. So there needs to be another way of returning that nitrogen gas to the earth. So storm clouds and lightning can remove some of the nitrogen within the atmosphere. Okay. When it strikes the ground, it puts in the ground some nitrogen, and it stores it by bacteria in the soil and root nodules. So storm clouds and lightning can actually return nitrogen from the atmosphere to the ground. This produces nitrates, and nitrates is something that we can use. Additionally, we return nitrogen to the earth in fertilizers. So whether that is maybe a man-made one, not as great, or compost, we can return that as a nitrate to the soil. Nitrates are stored in bacteria and root nodules in plants. So little things kind of attached to the roots of plants if you were to look very closely. One thing to note is that nitrates can infiltrate our groundwater, which is not something we want, but it is a byproduct of the nitrogen cycle. All right, so nitrates again can be used for fertilizer, and the runoff from that returns it to the earth. Nitrates can also just simply evaporate. Nitrates can be stored in plants after they've been returned to the soil, and horses and other mammals eat them. And this is how we get our nitrates, by eating plants and animals that contain these nitrates. Okay. However, when things die, they decay and can return nitrates to the soil, and their waste can return nitrates to the soil. So there's not a lot of ways to get nitrogen from the atmosphere back into the soil. However, really it's the food chain that does it for us. The fertilizers that we provide are plants. We eat plants, or other things eat plants. Waste and death and decay will return that to the earth over time. So the nitrogen cycle, one more time. Plants and animals cannot use nitrogen in the air. So N2 gas cannot be used in the air. It needs to be converted into nitrate using the nitrogen cycle for us to use it. Bacteria and lightning convert nitrogen gas to forms that plants can use. Plants use this nitrogen to grow. We eat the plants, animals eat the plants. They die, and bacteria convert them back into nitrates again. This compost helps other nutrients, contains other nutrients beyond nitrogen, but just focusing on this cycle, decomposition will provide nitrogen back to the soil. Some practice on page 251 of your textbook, number 1, 2, 3, and 4.